Hey there, happy 5 Minute Friday from Dr. Holly of ChiroNumbers.com. This is a training understanding financial statements, going over your profit and loss balance sheet, etc. This is a training that I typically do that is an hour-long presentation for coaching groups or for student groups and interns. But I'm going to break it down into a series of a couple of 5 minute videos, just to break it down to the snippets that you can understand, to bring this, sort of to light and to be able to see some examples of how to simplify looking at your finances. So, these financial statements are typically something that you're either going to get from your bookkeeper or your CPA, or that you can pull directly from your accounting software, such as something like QuickBooks, if you have access to that. So, profit and loss statement and a balance sheet, pretty much the gold standard. You really need both to be able to see what's going on in the business. Just sort of, get the pulse of what's going on in the business and the health of the business. But at the end of the day, these are historical documents. Okay. So I want you to remember that. So we definitely, it's important to look at them, to review them, etc. But we don't want to get sort of like analysis paralysis and feel overwhelmed by looking at them, okay? Because they are cataloging everything that's already happened in the past, okay? So if you want to be focused on the future, I have some ideas for you there. But it's important to know what your trends are, where things ended up, how things shook out at the end of the week, month, year, quarter, whatever. But remember that these are historical documents. Okay. So, what are we looking at? So, for a profit and loss statement, we're going to be looking at essentially your gross revenue and then bringing that down to your net revenue after expenses are taken out. The profit and loss is really great. It shows you that bottom line, which is either a profit or a loss. Okay, it's in the name, it's in the title. This can also be called an income statement, though. But there are a few key things that will not show up on a profit and loss statement, which is important to know when you're looking at it and you're like, oh, these numbers don't really make sense. It's because you're not seeing the full picture. Okay, you're seeing things most likely that are probably over on the balance sheet that don't translate over. And this comes down really to the business entity and how you file taxes, how you compensate yourself, how you take draws or money from the business yourself as the owner of the business. And so they're going to be reflected in different ways depending on your entity and your setup. Okay. So, what is the balance sheet? Quick view. Balance sheet is just a snapshot in time. It's a look at your current assets, your liabilities, and the equity in the business. Okay. So, you run a balance sheet and it's literally just like you can put in the software that it's for a period, but it's essentially just going to be like what everything was at the end of that period. So a lot of times we say, hey, let's pull it for December 31st of last year or the year before or the year before that to compare over time. Okay. So you want to find that date of whatever period you want to look at and pull it for that date. Okay. Now you can certainly pull one for December 31st and then pull one for, say March 31st, to look at what the differences were over that quarter period, okay? But they really are just a snapshot in time. It's kind of like doing lab work, right? We got to take that blood out right then. We're going to analyze it and see what was going on right then at that moment in time, okay? Versus the profit and loss. The profit and loss, you have to tell the system what the period is that you want it to look like, okay? So you can just run it for your current month. You can run it for your current year to date. So as I'm recording this, whatever today's date is, you can run it from a certain date till now, or for January 1st till now. You can run it and you can compare quarters together. You can compare years together. It's really informative and it's fun to sort of mess around with. One of my favorite features is going into QuickBooks, pulling a profit and loss for the year, but then categorizing it by months. You want to see the month view, okay? So we can see all these little ebbs and flows, right, in your cash flow, in your revenue, and in your expenses over that whole period of time, okay? So let's put a pen in it right there because I just shared a lot of information with you. I will get into showing you actual examples of what these things look like when I pulled them from QuickBooks, with redacted information, not sharing anything that's sensitive or anything like that. But just so you lay eyes on one, okay? Because you have to know, I'm very much a big advocate for having these financial professionals on your team, but you have to know how they need to communicate with you so that you understand what's going on and that they understand what's going on in your business as well, okay? So got to put a pin in it there. We'll talk a little bit more about this over this series over the next few weeks about what's important to know from these historical documents, and then what's important to know for looking at your potential in your business and how we can set your business up for success quarter over quarter, year over year. Have a good weekend.